is number 1009, Meditation on Breathing in the Teal Hymnal. You may be familiar with it, and I invite you to just let it wash over you, even as we hear the children delighting outside.
Our reading this morning comes from the Universalist minister Olympia Brown. Stand by this faith, work for it, and sacrifice for it. There is nothing in all the world so important as to be loyal to this faith which has placed before us the loftiest ideals, which has comforted us in sorrow, strengthened us for noble duty, and made the world beautiful. Do not demand immediate results, but rejoice that we are worthy to be entrusted with this great message, that you are strong enough to work for a great true principle without counting the cost. Go on, finding ever new applications of these truths and new enjoyments in their contemplation, always trusting in the one God which ever lives and loves.
am enthralled. Thank you. Our hearts are with the people of Ukraine and the countries they have fled to as they continue this unethical and unjust invasion. Thank you. Hi. Let me first reintroduce myself. I am a geek. I love school, and if I was eternally wealthy, I would spend most of my time in the classroom, either teaching or learning. I would stockpile certificates and degrees like a kid in the candy store. Is anyone with me? Oh, yeah. I thought I might have some brethren. Come on now, were you? But when I was a kid, the biggest unexpected joy was getting out of school early or arriving late, right? You know what I mean. Being picked up early for a doctor's appointment or some other important event was a big deal. And so when the Washington football team won the Super Bowl in 1987, I'm going to date myself a little bit here, my family decided we were all going to go to the parade, celebrating their win in the middle of the school day. I was 12 years old, and I had my trusty little camera, those Kodiak little click things. Does anyone remember cameras? Had my camera in my excited hands as we headed downtown to join the other thousands of fans. Do you remember parades? The waves and throngs of people all pressed up against each other, vying for the very best spot along the parade route. Parades to me as a kid were like the Russian dolls of unexpected delights. You would probably remember that feeling. What's coming next? Who are we going to see? What music is going to... And it was just electric. And I was so swept up in the excitement of that chilly and electric day that I asked my parents to go up along the parade route so I could get an even better view for good pictures, right? So off I went, bundled in my little purple puffy coat and dodging in and out of cheering fans. It was so great. It was so great to be part of that joy, that pride, watching those Washington football team players grinning from ear to ear, the triumphant marching bands, the bouncing cheerleaders, until I realized I had no idea where I was. And worse, no idea where my parents were. My little 12-year-old brain freaked out as I searched through the crowds as they started to disperse when the very end of the parade passed. I still remember the panic I felt that day, the sheer panic of being lost, swallowed up by so many strangers, searching each face for the recognition of familiarity, waiting for the relief of them to scoop me up, 1,000% certain that they were going to be furious with me for wandering off too far. And then I distinctly remember thinking, stop, just stop. I just have to stop and wait, and they would find me. I had no idea what old Girl Scout teaching crept into my thoughts or a safety message from school. Whatever nudged me, I stopped. I sat down on the curb along the parade route and waited for my parents to find me, and they did. And they weren't that mad. They were more relieved. I guess they liked me on that day. That was one of my most earliest memories of faith. I believed they would find me, that they loved me, and that meant that they would find me, or at least try. I trusted that. I trusted them. We can understand this as one entrance into faith at its most basic. And for many, our earliest experience of faith, faith is a trust or confidence in something, in someone, a supreme being, the goodness of life, the kindness of strangers, your spouse or loved ones. Faith in your parents or caregivers, or I should say, some parents or caregivers, to find you again and again when you've wandered off the path. And then life comes in as we grow, the messiness of people, the hard choices and hard-lived lives of people, the doubts, the pain, the frustration, the resentments come in as we grow older. We begin to know a bigger world than ourselves. We experience war. We understand poverty and famine. We understand the legacy of genocide and slavery and millions of lives lost throughout so many times from the Holocaust. We feel more deeply the pains of life, and we know all too well what people are capable of. People die. People break our hearts. They leave us or we leave them, and at times we are cast adrift. Perhaps the faith of our family, our childhood family, feels off or fails us. Or the God that we were taught as children no longer serves our understanding or worldview. And many of us wrestle with this. What is faith? What is this faith outside of just an innate confidence in trust? A loose definition that I've been playing with recently is that faith is the decision to believe in something greater than ourselves. Faith is the decision to believe in something greater than ourselves. And that sounds really simple, but give me a moment. I'll break it down into 3 parts. The decision. To decide is to make an intentional choice. We are thoughtful beings. We can dream, we can scheme, we can play with the best of them. Thoughts are like clouds wandering this way and that, but when we decide, we commit. We commit to a certain intentional mindset, a way of being. It is a choice. We decide, like I did that day on the parade route, the best thing I could do in that moment was to sit down. So we decide to point our lives towards meaning and purpose. But it also means we choose not to do things. We choose what to turn away from. And making a choice is part of our legacy as a people of a liberal faith. Quoting Elaine Pagels in her book, Why Religion? You might be interested in reading that. Why Religion? Elaine Pagels writes, ever since the 2nd century, Christian leaders, calling themselves Orthodox, meaning straight thinking, have defined choice as heresy. The Greek term translated as heresy, heresis, means exactly that, choice. So when we choose, we are returning, my beloveds, to our heretical roots of heresy. Our roots that affirm our belief that revelation is not sealed, because we keep on opening up that bag and putting in and taking things out, that wisdom and truth, the evolving nature of science and our understanding of this amazing world and ourselves continues to evolve, to inform, and to nurture our lives. So, my beloveds, to be a heretic is to choose our path, to continue on in that search for truth and meaning, which brings us to that. Even just saying those 2 words together reminds me of a famous podcast and radio series back from the 50s. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? This I Believe. This, I believe, began in 1951 as a 5-minute radio program hosted then by the journalist Edgar R. Murrow. Described as a show that encouraged both famous and everyday people to write short essays about their own personal motivation in life and then to read them on air. They are eternally charming. This, I believe, became a cultural phenomenon that stressed individual belief rather than religious dogma. I would love to see if anyone has actually calculated how many Unitarians or Unitarian Universalists or Universalists actually did a "this I believe." Morrow wrote that the reason he started the "This I Believe" project was after his service in World War II and the beginnings of the Cold War. And he wrote, "The uncertainty of the economic future, the shadow of war, the atom bomb, the army service for oneself or loved ones, and the frustration of young people facing the future." I think you could almost say the same words of this day. These themes are enduring, and of course they are. We are all still wrestling with living life on life's terms, not on our terms. We all do. Which means that as the "This I Believe" program is described, people will live happier and richer lives if they deliberately decide what they want from life, what they want in material things and the relative importance of moral and spiritual things. So for me, to believe is to set that beacon up on that hill and say, that, or perhaps more fittingly is the beautiful stained glass at the back, that is the world I seek. Those are the people I want to believe in. It is to say, that is the light that I am guided by. I believe. I believe in kindness. I believe in science. I believe in service. I believe in generosity. I believe in a loving God. Or yet, I choose to believe in kindness. I choose to believe in service and sacrifice because those beliefs are tested and expanded and explored and wrestled with, just like Jacob and the angel. We wrestle, my beloveds, we wrestle, and we are broken and blessed. If we stop there, though, if we stop at, we choose to believe in X, Y, or Z, then we are missing the pulsing, meaty heart that holds it all together and gives faith its meaning, that which is greater than ourselves. As Unitarian Universalists, we say and we live as a people of covenant. We are bound to one another in this fabric of life. We are bound, and remember, the word religion at its roots is to bind, religio, to bind. We are bound up in the interdependent web of all of existence, of which we are a part. We are bound to our ancestors who survived long enough to ensure future generations. We are bound to those who will go after us, our children, our children's children, and 7 generations beyond and beyond, who will inherit this world that we've either made better or worse through our actions. We are bound to something greater than ourselves. For some, that is God, or the God of your understanding. For some, it is wisdom and science. For others, it is the common good, the collective whole, and our liberation. Do you know what I mean? Since we are bound, we show up for each other because we believe in love. Did anyone make it to the Poor People's Campaign last month, either in person or online? There were streams of folks with Side with Love t-shirts. Our UU kin showed up in full force. We show up. I love that we're known as the people of love who show up. I think every UU should have that yellow shirt. We show up for each other because we believe in that radical love, a courageous love that welcomes the stranger, that feeds the poor, that heals the sick, that comforts the dying. We show up for worship and service because we believe in our collective resolve to build and sustain this spiritual community, this faith of our choice. Because here is a place, I like to tell my congregation, here is a place where you are a we. You are a we. And we show up for justice. Because we believe without our faithful witness, the agitation and protests of people of faith, the world will tilt towards our basest natures, selfishness, self-centeredness, and mindless hedonism, rampant toxic individualism, cutthroat capitalism that uses people, especially marginalized and Black, Indigenous, and people of color, uses people and the earth like tissue paper. We show up for those without institutional power, for those on the margins who are vulnerable and disenfranchised, because without the work of people of faith and conscience, they, and some of us even here today, remain invisible and suffering. My beloveds, we show up because we have to. So faith is to choose to believe in something greater than ourselves, and then a bonus, we have meaning. We have purpose. We have a framework to live our lives and a place to return to when our spirits wane and the world gets overwhelming. Anyone feeling overwhelmed these days? Come on now, tell the truth. It is overwhelming. So places like this and people of heart like you are our bedrock. Because we have this identity. We have this identity like a garment wrapped around our shoulders because we know we are a part of the good in the world. The transformational, the hopeful that continues to point to that beacon on the hill and say, that is what's possible. So the Spirit of life roots hold me close, but wings set us free. So we have to go no farther than our own Universalist roots, the core of our teaching of our Universalist kin, who taught that since there is no heaven or hell, there is no eschatology. Eschatology we make, we create, and we sustain heaven or hell right here. Right here in this world, here in our lives, in our homes, and in our hearts. To put it simply, and the kids love it when I say this, the Universalists taught us to love the hell out of this world. At General Assembly, you can even find t-shirts that say this. Love the hell out of this world. Through our courageous love, our unending compassion, and our grace. So yes, we may veer off course and get lost in that crowd. We may become overwhelmed and cringe and die a little bit inside every time we open a newspaper or turn on the news. And yes, we may be asked to show up for yet another protest, yet another march, and asked to dig a little bit deeper to support those on the margins in causes that we believe in. We may find ourselves alone and waiting on that curb to be found, and yes, we will be found. So this faith, This faith, to choose to believe in something greater than ourselves, it reignites our passion for meaning and purpose. And so, my beloveds, we find our way home again and again. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so. If you join me now in body or spirit, let us sing together hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land. I invite you to rise in body or spirit, and if you're joining us online, please do sing along.
Please join me as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our words of benediction, bene meaning good, diction meaning to speak, to send you out with a good word. And now may we have faith in life, to do wise planting, that the generations to come may reap even more abundantly than we have. May we be bold May we be bold in bringing to fruition the golden dreams of human kinship and justice. This we ask, that the fields of promise become fields of reality. Amen and ashe. And may our lives preach louder than our lips.